Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We present The Piddingtons. And here once again, as your commentator, is Stephen Grenfell.
Good evening to you all, both at home and in the number 1 Piccadilly studio right here in the West End in the middle of London. Now, as you no doubt know, this is the second in the series of 3 broadcasts by that remarkable couple, the Piddingtons. Well, as usual, they've got a program ready which is going to give you all furiously to think. But before we go any further, let me introduce to you the 3 distinguished people who are going to act tonight as your personal witnesses during the next half hour. They are someone that you certainly know better as, and your children do, as Dick Barton, Mr. Duncan Cass. Will you come up, Duncan? Good evening, Duncan. You've taken on some assignments in your time as a special agent. I hope we don't throw you with this one.
Well, I wouldn't be too sure of that.
Okay.
Rather different, you know. Haven't got my helpers here either.
Right. Well, I'll act for Snowy and Jock if I can.
Okay.
Right, the seat right behind you, Duncan. A young film star who, as you probably saw on the Chiltern Hundreds, and you will see soon in 2 films which he's making at the same time, The Wooden Horse, a story of a prisoner of war camp, and So Long at the Fair with Miss Jean Simmons, David Tomlinson. Well, David, nice to have you here. How do you feel about it?
Terrified. Absolutely. But I'm always terrified.
Well, then, I think if you just sit down while you're getting your nerves back, all right? Now, a very remarkable young lady who... There seems to be a South African atmosphere in this show. We had a South African judge last week. She's also a South African. She's remarkable in so much that, apart from being extremely attractive, she's not only a film star, but she's a producer as well. You may remember her of a show she made and starred in, Corridor of Mirrors. She's going to Paris in the spring, the right time to make Rochelle. Miss Adana Romney.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Piddington for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you, Donna. Helped up onto the platform, incidentally, by the terrified Tomlinson. Now, of course, I should tell you that we've got a studio audience of nearly 200 judges here, lynx-eyed, eagle-eyed, bursting with intelligent interest. Well, now that we've set the scene, I hope we have, let me hand you over to that remarkable young man from the Antipodes, Sidney Piddington.
Thank you, Stephen Grenfell. Good evening, listeners. Now, our first test tonight is one which will seem quite familiar to lots of you because it's based on the old parlour game of murder. You know the sort of thing, someone is chosen as detective, someone else as murderer, then the lights are turned out, and whilst the appointed murderer disposes of his chosen victim, all the males in the party seize the opportunity of placing their arms protectively round all the females. Then the foul deed done, the lights are turned on again. Everyone straightens him or herself out, and then the detective attempts to detect the murderer. Well, tonight we propose a slight variation on that theme. Leslie will take the role of a detective and will be removed from the studio to a place where she can neither see nor hear what happens or is said in here. Then Duncan Cass or Dick Barton, who specialises in murders of a most interesting kind, will select from our studio audience first a victim and then a murderer. Then he will describe in his own inimitable style just how the one will dispose of the other. I regret to inform the male members of the audience that unfortunately at no stage of the proceedings will the studio lights be extinguished. Now, when Duncan Cass, Dick Barton, has completed his gruesome plot, Leslie will be recalled and in total silence will attempt to receive from me the identity of the murderer, the corpse, and also the murder method. Now, let's see how it goes. Miss Romney, will you take Leslie outside through that back door of the studio and make sure she neither sees nor hears anything that happens in here?
Well, Miss Romney starts off, walks on the platform, gets hold of Leslie, who's looking as though she might be going to be murdered. They go away to a small door, about 15 or 20 yards away, through the door, carefully shepherded by the studio attendant. The girls are together, chatting about something completely different by now, but still. The door shuts, and I think we can say that they're tucked away in their little studio there, so back to you, Sidney.
Right? Now, Duncan Cass, as Dick Barton, would you please take over? Choose your victim first, and then your murderer, and tell the listeners just how this horrible crime will be done.
All right, Duncan, it's up to you now.
All right.
We must tell the listeners first that the audience here of about 200 people are divided into two big blocks on the right or the left. Now, you pick your corpse first. Who would you like?
I think we'll take someone from the right for a corpse. I rather fancy a right-handed corpse.
All right.
What about that gentleman, the third row from the back, sitting right on the gangway here?
Wait a minute.
Distinguished-looking gentleman, looking round now and hoping it's not him.
The one who's standing up?
Yes.
Right, yes. No, don't come up, please. Now, if you just stay there for the moment so we get it straight. Now, I hope you won't mind what I'm going to say about you, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows back on the right-hand side, listeners. Distinguished-looking gentleman, beginning to go slightly bald because obviously lots of the old brain box up there. A little bit of money. Will you stand up, sir, so we can see the rest? Rather opulent with a scarf and a pair of gloves, and it looks like an old wrap tie. Will you keep standing? You're going to be the corpse. So stand until you have to lie down, will you? And now, if you go on and anywhere else you like, I mean, pick the character who's going to knock him off.
I think we ought to have a woman for that, don't you?
All right, so it's in character.
I wonder if the lady in the fourth row back here, also on the gangway on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
in the blue check coat, would
Oh,
be a
yes.
charming murderess for us. I think she
She doesn't
would,
look as though
perhaps.
she wants to, but let's see. Left-hand side listeners of this audience here, lady who doesn't want to play at all, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows back, check coat, no drops on them. Yes, buttons on them. Drops, you'll move. Will you stand up? And not quite a blonde, not quite a brunette. Looking a little worried. Will you just keep standing for the moment? All right, now, will you detail the horrible method of mayhem by which you want this charming lady on the left to knock the gent on the right off?
Well, I think a very simple one, the kind of thing which Snowy and Jock have to cope with so often when I've made a mess of it. I think she just takes a hammer and crowns him with it, and she takes the body in a car, and she pushes it down the nearest sewer, nice big one, and drives away, just lets it go.
Right. Well, you get that, listeners, the sort of thing that might happen to you or I. You just knock on the head with a hammer, push the body in a car, drive it away, and down a sewer. That right, Dick?
Yes, yes.
Dick, I mean, sorry, I say Duncan to you. All right, Sidney? Well, I think they'd better sit down first, don't you?
That sounds delightful. That's our victim on the right-hand side. That's the seventh row back, the first person, and our murderess, it is, isn't it? That's right.
Yes.
On the left-hand side, 4 rows back, and the first, and you are, I understand, going to strike this man, are you, until he's unconscious with a hammer. That's very, very pleasant indeed. And now, Mr. Tomlinson, would you please ask the studio attendant to get Leslie brought in? Now, just before you do, when she comes back, I want you to ask Miss Romney whether she could possibly have seen or heard anything that occurred in here. But just before you do, I want you, Dick Barton, to take me behind that screen over there so that on her return I shan't be visible to Leslie and there'll be no question of my sending semaphore messages to her, right? Let's go now.
Yes, let's get going.
Right. So while Sidney's taken away by Duncan, Dick Barton behind the screen, it's just time for me to tell you, incidentally, that while Mrs. Piddington, when she comes back and wanders around the audience with a hand mic to try and find the murderer, the corpse, I shall be talking to you listeners, but you won't hear me because I'll be on a microphone a long way away. You will hear me, but she won't. Right, Donna comes back with David Tomlinson and Leslie. Now, David, find out from Adana whether there's been any visual or any sort of communication at all, will you?
Yes. Did you decide that you couldn't discover where to buy nylons or not?
No, I discovered where I could.
I see. I've been asked by Ian Messenger to ask some questions. There are 2 questions here, and he particularly wants me to choose which question I shall ask first. So I shall choose, curiously enough, the first question. Have you been with Leslie all the time?
Oh, of course. Yes, naturally.
I see. Question number 2. While you were outside, did you see or hear anything that happened in this studio?
No, didn't hear or didn't see.
No. Jolly good. that it?
Is that all?
right, and Leslie.
Well, will everyone please concentrate, first of all, on the position of the victim, the poor lamented corpse, and I shall try to find him or her.
Right, now, Leslie picks up a hand microphone and begins to walk down the center aisle of these two parts here, the right and the left. All the audience are watching her. Leslie certainly can't hear anything that I'm saying because I'm whispering at a microphone which is a good 20 yards away from her. She has no earphones on. She walks very slowly down with her cable being carried behind her rather like a bridal train. She's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows back. She pauses for a moment, turns to the right looking a little worried and not quite certain. Goes on again, turns again to the right. Still carrying her hand microphone, she stands again in the middle, turns to the right, turns back. Looking really worried now.
Somewhere just here. Are you the corpse?
I am, yes.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, that's good, thank you. I'm so sorry.
Swooping like a vulture, she got the corpse. He was feeling very pleased about
But
it.
he looks such a harmless man. Well, will you all concentrate now on the foul murderer, please? And I'll try to find him.
So the corpse now is looking extremely happy with the whole proceedings. Leslie again takes a hand microphone. Again, she's not quite certain whether to walk down the aisle or to the left. She starts off to the left, actually. Along, right along to the left side of the house, the end seat. If you hear any rattles, it's because she's carrying a microphone cable behind her. She's going right up now to the left of the auditorium, changes her mind completely, comes back again. Looking very wide in the middle, hands are almost trembling on the handle of the microphone. Now she's completely changed her mind. She's going to go again down the centre aisle. She walks along, concentrating again on the left. The cable pulls her up every now and then, and occasionally she turns around as though completely bewildered.
Take a long time, I'm sorry. Is it you?
Yes.
It is, thank you.
Nice work, Leslie. As you heard, listeners, already the corpse has been identified and the murderess. And now, Leslie, it's up to you to find out just exactly what was done.
Yes. Well, would you all concentrate on the way the poor little man was put away by this nasty female? Oh, dear. I think he's... some kind of striking at him. Is that anywhere near right?
You want me to go ahead now and say, yes. I was waiting with Leslie in case she was going on with details.
Oh.
Well, certainly the striking is right.
Oh, well, he's
near enough.
All right, that's near enough.
What was it exactly?
Leslie, I didn't jump in there because I thought perhaps that you were really going to go on to give it any details, and I didn't want to stop you by one word even. Anyway, you can see, listeners, that it doesn't pay to commit murder if you've got the Piddingtons at your party. But anyway, death and bloodshed notwithstanding, we've got to get on with the show. Over now to Sydney to tell you about the next 3 tests that he's got.
Now, it's been suggested to us by many of our critics that they would like to see Leslie alone in one room and myself in another. Whereupon, at requested times by a studio clock, and with no communication of any kind between us, Leslie should attempt to receive messages put forward by witnesses and transmitted by me. That is just what we're going to attempt now. Mr. Tomlinson, I'm going to ask you to take Leslie out to the soundproof studio. Now, you have looked at that studio, and can you assure our audience that there are no means whatsoever of communication between it and this studio?
I would say there are absolutely no means whatever of communication between that room and the studio.
Good. Now, it's your job to make certain that no one gets into Leslie. And after you have gone, both Miss Romney and Dick Barton will suggest words that they wish me to transmit to Leslie. They will also suggest the exact moment, that is, so many seconds after they have made their suggestion, at which they wish me to send those messages. Is that quite clear?
Right.
Right. Now, take Leslie away now, and we'll see you later.
Right, now it's David's turn to take Leslie away, and the laugh there is because he turned around and shrugged his shoulders, put his arms out as though he definitely meant to take her away for some time. Anyway, the door shut again, a little red door marked no admittance, and over to you now.
Romney, I want you to nominate any word or article or object. Preferably, they're not necessarily something easily visualized. That is, something that we can see so we can transmit it to Leslie, which could not possibly be known beforehand either to Leslie or to myself, because until now you have not even so much as thought of it. Now, do you understand? I'm
Yes.
relying on you to utter some word or words which, until the moment that you have uttered them, could not possibly be known to anyone else. Then, as well as suggesting the subject for transmission, I want you to ask for it to be transmitted, say 15 seconds, 23 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you please, after you stop talking. Is that clear?
An object or words,
Yes.
one or the other.
That's right. Then, as soon as you have made your choice and declared the time, Stephen Grenfell will count off the seconds until 0, when I must transmit and Leslie receive. In other words, Leslie has no idea what will be chosen. She has no idea when it will be transmitted.
Yes.
She has no contact at all with this studio being securely guarded by David Tomlinson in a completely isolated and soundproof studio. I ask you all to help Leslie by concentrating as much as possible on whatever is chosen at the moment that Stephen Grenfell calls 0. Is that all clear?
Yes.
Right, Stephen, it's all yours.
All right, listeners, just to put you in the picture again, I've got in my right hand a stopwatch. You've heard what I'm going to do about the counting. Now, Miss Romney, have you an object in your mind?
Yes.
Will you tell us what it is, please?
This pearl ring on my hand.
Pearl ring on your right hand. Now, how many seconds from now do you wish Leslie to attempt to transmit that pearl ring in your hand?
30
From?
from now.
Right, I've clicked the stopwatch. We're coming up to 4 seconds already. Remember, listeners, what the object was. It's now just coming up to 10 seconds. You might like to check it with your watches at home. The audience is very tense here. 15 seconds, we're halfway through. Remember that Leslie's going to attempt to transmit this on the actual second. Right, it's coming up to 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 0.
I think that you're transmitting something now. It's something something to do with Miss Romney herself. Belongs to her. Oh, it's a ring she's wearing, I think.
Yes, fine. You heard that, listeners, a ring transmitted exactly on beginning the transmission on the actual second, which I checked with a stopwatch. Sydney?
And now, Mr. Barton, I want you to come forward. Mr. Cars, isn't it, Mr. Barton? I've been calling you all night. And I want you to do the same thing. That is, at first, I want you to think of some article, some objects, or some words, something which has not at this moment come into your mind. Then, when you've decided, I want you to tell that to our studio audience and our listening audience. And after you've done that, I want you to decide the number of seconds after you've stopped talking that you want me to attempt to transmit this to Leslie.
Yes,
Is that all clear?
Yes, may I ask one thing?
Yes.
Can I have something that's alive?
Yes, dead or alive?
Well, I'm ready when you are.
Right, off you go.
And we've had one corpse tonight. That's quite enough.
All right, Duncan. Well, you've got your dead or alive object, have you, in your mind?
Yes.
Not with you, I hope.
No, I
In
wish
case
I
it isn't
had.
the dead one. Well, what is it?
Penguin.
Penguin. A live penguin.
Yeah, live penguin.
Now, how many seconds from now would you like Leslie to transmit this live penguin through the little red door that's shut?
Oh, 25.
25 from
Now.
Again, listeners, I click the stopwatch, and in 25 minutes from now, this bewildered audience here should be seeing a live, 25 seconds, should be seeing a live penguin come beetling through the red door. 10 seconds, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The 10 seconds to go, so perhaps you'd like to check them with me. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 0.
Mr. Barton's chosen something. It's, an animal? No, it's a bird. It's some particular kind of bird. Just concentrate on what kind it is. It's cold. Somewhere cold. I think it's a penguin.
Thank you very much. And now, this time, I would just like to try and experiment with a check question, or at least a check word in this test, just as a check for your benefit on our two judges. Now, Miss Romney, would you come forward? And Dick Barton, would you come forward? Now, between you, I want you to decide on somebody in the audience down here. I want you to pick that person out and invite the person to come up to the microphone here. Would you do that?
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
Don't pick the corpse, because he's had an awfully bad time tonight.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. The lady on the fourth seat.
With the bright scarf.
And the check dress.
With the bright scarf in the fourth
Front
seat?
row.
Oh, in the front row?
Yes, front row.
Right. Oh, Mr. Messiter has just informed me that that's his wife. Perhaps she'd better not come up. Somebody might accuse her of being a Confederate.
Yes.
I think so. Well, may we take the fourth seat from the front row on the other side? I'm afraid that's you, madam.
With the pink feathers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, just before we go any further, would anybody in the studio audience here like to change the person who's at the microphone now? Because if you would, I'd just like you to stand up and say so. No? Perfectly happy? Right. Now, Miss Romney and Mr. Cowes, I want you to supply a short sentence, just a very, very short one, such as that the cat is fat or something odd like that, and then I want you to put in that sentence just one word. It can be any word at all which will fit into that sentence, and then I shall attempt to transmit the idea of the whole sentence to Leslie. Right?
Yes. Darling, I love you.
Darling, I love you. Are you saying it to Dick Barton?
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course, right?
I can't respond as I should.
You can't respond as you should.
It's too complicated for you.
Now, what's the whole then?
Now, I want you to put just one word in there, or two words, if you like. Darling, I love you, not at all or a lot, or just anything at all that can be fitted.
I think just tremendously.
Tremendously. Right, now, is that all clear? Darling, it is it?
Yes.
Darling, I love you
Yes.
Tremendously.
Yes.
Right, now, when the time comes, I want you all to concentrate very earnestly on that sentence, and I shall attempt to get the idea of it across to Leslie. And
Well, what time are we going to choose?
oh, yes, and would you choose a time to start? So many seconds from now.
30.
30 seconds from now.
Now.
No.
Well, in 30 seconds, darling, I love you tremendously. Not all the time in the world to play with, but coming up to 9, 10, 11, just coming up to 15 now. Remember what the sentence was, listeners. Coming up to 20, 10 seconds to go. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 0.
You started concentrating on a line. It's something to do with you, Sidney. And me. Somebody talking. Is it just an idea of... I can't get any object or... It's about love. Something like that, abstract. Someone talking. I love you. You're saying. I love you. Something before that. Dear. Dear, I love you, dear. There's something else. Would you concentrate on the last part? I think it's something like, I love you, dear, a lot.
And now, Miss Romney, would you come forward again to this microphone over here? Now, this time, I'm going to ask you simply to take the pencil, there's a pad there, and I want you to write down the suit and number of any card in a pack of playing cards on that pad. Don't speak it aloud, just write it down, and let me know when you've done that.
Yes, I've done it.
I shall just ask for silence, and once again, Leslie will rely entirely upon a telepathic flash, which she will receive from me here. Now, Miss Romney, would you just stand by this microphone here, and I want you to concentrate with me on this. Thank you. I ask you to concentrate on Leslie so she will know that there is a message to receive. See if you listeners can receive it before she does. And now in the studio, your silence, please.
It's a diamond or a red court. A diamond. I think it's the Jack of Diamonds.
Now, it's a court card, Leslie. Oh, she can't hear, I'm sorry. It's a court card. It's the Queen of Hearts. Still, she got the court card, and the colour was right. Thank you very much.
Very well, listeners. That last test was done by Leslie without her having at any time heard any word of what went on in here or known when any message was going to be transmitted. She's beginning to run back very quickly here, but I think she's going to miss the end of the show because I must tell you now that the last one took a bit of concentrating, and I'm afraid it concludes the second in this series of 3 broadcasts. Leslie's back again. Nice work, Leslie. And thanks once again not only to the Piddingtons, but to Duncan Cass, David Tomlinson, and to Dana Romney.
You've just been listening to a program featuring the Piddingtons. Your commentator was Stephen Grenfell. Production by Ian C. Mester.